Welcome back. It's good to see you. Looking forward to your presentation. Once again, I'm Jeff Owen from Washington, D.C., former Trade Association executive, and very glad to be with you today.
Good afternoon. I'm JC Polanco. I'm an attorney here in New York City. I live in the Bronx and I teach at the City University of New York. I'm really excited to be here on your second day, and I hope you knock it out the park. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Ellen Iwamoto. I'm the Director of Civics Programs at the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you and hearing your presentation. Good luck.
Thanks, Ellen. Could I ask you each to introduce yourselves and your teacher, please?
Hello, my name is Alina Banyos, and I'm representing Seminole Academy, and you see your teacher, Mr. Robert Adamowitz, and it is nice to see you all again today.
Hello, my name is Amelia. I'm representing Unit 6 for South Seminole Academy today, and I'm very happy to see everyone here again. I look forward to speaking with you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm George Franzek. I'm representing South Seminole Academy with Unit 6. I'm happy to be here today.
Well, great. Thanks, your teacher, for all the work that you've done. We appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to read the question, and then we're going to turn you loose for your presentation. So, Unit 6, what are the responsibilities of citizens? Specifically, the question, what role, if any, should the United States play in helping other nations or promoting democratic ideas and principles around the world? What are the advantages and disadvantages of nation states? What criteria should be used to determine which countries should be helped, and what kind and level of help the United States should offer these countries? In what ways do nations of the world interact with each other? Please begin.
The role of the United States, promoting democratic ideas and principles around the world, can always be promoted by doing a variety of simple tasks. This can allow our nations to become more involved in our complex world. The United States needs to help other countries as best we can. But while doing this, we need to be careful due to the pandemic we're living in today, so we can prevent the spread of the virus. We have to lend a helping hand to other nations only when it's needed. Our nation should not provide for other nations if it is not needed. We would be wasting resources. When another nation is short on medical supplies or they need vaccines, we should provide. If it is not needed, we do not need to provide. Our government has already planned on providing the formula of the vaccine to other nations to help fight against the virus. No matter what, this will be perceived as a kind act.
We determine this by looking at where these nations stand economically. So, if a nation were to have very bad debt and have access to medical supplies, which would cause the spread of many illnesses, then that nation would need the most support. Just because they are asking does not mean that we need to provide. If they have a lack of certain supplies, then we would need to help. But the United States needs to look into every nation before they attempt to help them to prevent the wasting of materials and resources. For example, countries in Africa are not as rich as the United States. In light of this, the U.S. has sent relief organizations such as UNICEF to help bring them the things they need to survive. It is crucial to evaluate and understand the positioning and motives of the separate nation combined with its past experiences before moving forward to prevent investment toward a greater issue. After the proper research is done, the United States should look into how stable the country that is looking for assistance is in regards to socio-political stances, monetary factors, history of conflict, and governmental foundations. Therefore, the decision for aid of other countries by the U.S. is based upon their economical standpoint of whether they can support themselves efficiently.
Nations all across the world commonly interact via forms of trade. This can be through various forms, including even language, music, arts, crops, and overall cultures. Another way we communicate is by war. There are ups and downs to worldwide communication, but it is still possible. This essential skill is also known as diplomacy and is necessary in order to maintain a healthy bond with other countries around the globe. To illustrate, the US has sent diplomats around the world to speak and make agreements with other countries, establishing travel access to these other places. The first long-distance trade was set forth in 3000 BC between Mesopotamia and Pakistan to deliver valuables such as precious metals and spices. This has evolved and continued up until now, where truces are being made continuously, such as the agreement to bring US-UK air transport into force, which was signed in November of 2020. A rich and successful formula and basis of communication is what differentiates positive and negative interactions. Through diplomacy, trade of knowledge, foundations, and treaties, bridges can be built on the simple values of trust, consistency, and communication over time.
A nation state allows for more diversity while also keeping a strong national government. For example, the US government is able to maintain a strong state government as well as a strong national government. However, there are also downsides to a nation state. These downsides could lead to too much division and separation.
For example, nation states typically share things. Some examples are language, culture in some nation states, type of currency, and government system. The government also has a lot of people to meet the needs of, and there are often disagreements. This makes it hard to find solutions that appeal to everyone's preferences and ideas.
Both the positives and negatives of nation states lie within its name. Its unity as an entire nation characterizes the beauty of a team mindset when it comes to politics, yet has some disadvantages due to the mix and less separation in subcultures and mindsets. It is better to have a variety of options to be able to see a taste of each separate point of view, though similarity has the advantage of agreement and the ability to come together easily. We will now take your questions.
Great, thank you very much. Well done. I want to start off with a question and draw your attention to the Constitution. We are a country following the rule of law. We live by a constitution, which by definition means there's limited government limited to the constraints of the Constitution. But what elements of American constitutionalism have influenced other countries?
I would say that, well, most definitely our democratic way of doing things, like how we vote for office. I feel like some countries have taken that into perspective and have applied that in their government systems. So that's an example of that thing.
So democracy, as Alina said, I definitely agree with that statement. So the basis of democracy is the people having their opinions voiced equally within a governmental system. And the United States was one of the first countries to have not a democracy itself, but a republican democracy, one of those types of governments where the people come together, but there's an equal division in power between the national and the state levels, so that the people do pick who's president, and then the president therefore runs for office, and the state governments are able to do what's at the state level. Other countries have learned from this, and some have been under monarchies where there were powers of the kings and queens, and they couldn't necessarily voice themselves equally like we do have the opportunities here. So they've been inspired by that and been able to imply those important foundations into their own systems that way. So they've fought for their own independence and become the places where they're able to express themselves freely instead of.
I agree with both my colleagues because, as they previously stated, we promote democracy a lot. That's really what our nation is known for. And other states, other nations notice this, and they see how well it'd be working. In history, other nations have learned from this and put it into role in their government.
Great, thank you very much.
So I know that your parents work very hard, and one day you'll be working hard too, and you'll be paying a lot of taxes. You're probably going to wonder where that money is going. Some of it's going away to foreign aid. I want to know from you, what do you think are the costs and benefits for Americans when we give foreign aid to other countries?
Well, like George had stated previously about how we should choose who we help, that's a thing. And when we choose correctly, we could, I guess, benefit from it, and they could possibly give back to us as, I guess, to compensate for that. But most importantly, like in the pandemic we are right now, perhaps the sharing would help us reach more experts who could have a say in what we are actually doing, and we could find a way to make our treatments better in that way.
I agree with my colleague because we shouldn't be blindly giving resources to other nations. We should know who we're donating to, and we should have a valid reason as to why we're donating to them. And this could work as a concept of trade, maybe in the future, like we provide to them and they provide back to us. But as of right now, we do need to not blindly donate to any other nation and keep a valid reason for these donations.
I agree with both of my colleagues. There's not much that I would add to what they said, except that I do agree that we shouldn't be blindly spending our resources on that part. But when there is a dire need for us to lend a hand, that should also be taken into account. For example, right now, India has a lot of COVID cases and they've been rising in that. So if we're trying to vaccinate our people, we shouldn't necessarily give out vaccines to other places or open our borders and say, hey, you can come in from India if you have this, blah, 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 blah. Like, we should be careful about who we let in, but we should also give out things when it's needed, to say.
Thank you.
So I'd like to circle back to the Constitution, except this time I'd like you to tell me where in the Constitution, or what are the provisions of the Constitution that provide for how the United States acts, in the world today.
May you please repeat the question?
Sure. I'll rephrase it a little bit. So, the Constitution tells us how our government should be run, and we talk about the three branches. So, what parts of the Constitution sort of guide us, or direct the government and telling it what it should be doing, in the global sense as a world leader? Can you identify what parts of the Constitution, or what the Constitution does say regarding that?
I think if I am correct that there has something to do with, like, I guess, diplomats, like my colleague Amelia said about trade and how you make treaties. How do you make treaties as a diplomat? And they are important people in our government who do those things as their job, and it helps us to communicate with foreign nations outside of the United States.
I agree with my colleague because our nation does a lot of trade and a lot of like letting in immigrants, and we do a very good job at communicating with other countries. And I feel like the more we do that, the more not only division we have, but the more division the world has. So there's more of a like the world would be in a better state because we're all communicating. And another thing is our government does a very well job at creating peace treaties and keeping peace with other nations.
Specifically regarding the Constitution, George Washington did write his farewell address, and within that farewell address, there were some concerns for the future he put in, such as getting involved in business with other nations when it's not needed or not necessary, and what effect that could have on the future. But he also did state some things such as the importance of being able to have multiple mindsets and things, and that could also relate to how we communicate with other nations, because other nations have such diverse cultures, and because of that, they have different views on how they would run their government as well, which could relate to how we take in ideas from their government and we can provide our foundations of democracy as well to help them. So it creates this mutual bond between other nations that is very healthy, to say, and that we can trade things over, such as the Constitution.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Enjoyed this time we spent together. I thought you worked well together. Thought you had a good opening statement where it had depth and breadth to it, and you've obviously very well prepared. You were able to evolve on some of these answers where you could just tell you're getting focused on it, and you would play off each other as each of you built the answer. And I think that was a healthy and quite frankly positive development for you. So all in all, a very good presentation. I enjoyed it very much, and thank you. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
I agree very much. Did you practice the delivery beforehand a lot?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
I could
yes,
tell.
sir.
I could tell it was very good. And you have to give a high five to your teacher on how he prepared you for today, because you guys did a very good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I thought you also did a very good job. I like how you really brought in the main event that's going on around us globally, COVID, and how you work that into your responses. I was going to actually ask you about COVID at some point, but you already answered that in your presentation. I thought your historical examples were very good to support your arguments as well, and everybody participated, which I thought which is always good because you're all very well prepared. And I commend you and your teacher for participating in the National Invitational and doing all this work and preparation during what I'm sure has been a very difficult year to be in school.